They say pleasure is the reward, but what if it's the mask? What if the chocolate, the scroll, the flirt, the laugh aren't the real thing, but just well-dressed shadows hiding something deeper, something more ancient, more painful? Think about it. When was the last time you felt full, really full, without needing anything else? Not entertained, not numbed, just complete, still, content. If you're struggling to remember, you're not alone. We live in a time where pleasure is everywhere, yet somehow we're starving. Carl Jung once said that what we chase for comfort often keeps us from healing. And maybe that's the most dangerous part of pleasure. It looks like peace, but sometimes it's just distraction in disguise. Picture this. You wake up, your hand reaches for your phone before your eyes are even fully open. There's no reason, no emergency, no excitement, just habit. You scroll, something makes you smile, then it's gone. Another post, another reel, a laugh, a dopamine hit, and then it's gone too. You keep scrolling, and before you know it, hours have passed, but the ache you woke up with, still there. The silence, still heavy. Maybe you eat something. You weren't even hungry, but the chips, the cookie, the drink, they gave you a momentary pause. Not satisfaction, not nourishment, just pause. A break from that uncomfortable silence you've never really described, but always try to avoid. Jung had a word for this: shadow. It's the part of you you hide beneath distractions. And pleasure? That's the shovel we use to bury it. You're not eating because you're hungry. You're not scrolling because you're curious. You're not desiring because you're in love. You're trying to disappear without leaving the room. Here's the hard truth. Most of what we call pleasure is really just relief, a temporary numbness from self-awareness. But it doesn't last, because every time you indulge in fake pleasure, your body grows more desperate for the real thing. And when it doesn't arrive, you feel broken. But you're not. You're just misled. You've been trained to confuse escape with enjoyment. And what we run toward isn't always what we need. Let's go back a little. You're 6. You cry. No one listens. You learn that being sad gets you nowhere. But when you smile, or make people laugh, or distract yourself, you get approval. So you keep doing it for years. Until one day, you're an adult. And your pain is still there, but now it's buried beneath loud pleasures. Louder than your loneliness, louder than your fears, louder than the child inside you who never got to speak. And here's where it gets even more real. Pleasure has memory. Every time you used it to block pain, your nervous system made a note. And now, stillness feels unbearable. You can't sit in silence. You need noise in the shower, music when you drive, a screen when you eat. Why? Because silence now feels like punishment. Not because it is, but because you never learned to feel safe in it. Jung understood this well. Pleasure, when misused, doesn't just distract, it disconnects. Not because pleasure is bad, but because avoidance is addictive. The real problem isn't the thing you're doing, it's what you're not facing. If anything I've said so far feels familiar, if you've ever felt that weird guilt after doing something that should have made you happy, subscribe to this channel, not just to grow this community, but to remind yourself, you're not the only one waking up to this. And if something hit deep, drop a comment with the moment that shook you. That's not weakness, that's self-awareness. That's where the healing starts. Let's keep going. Imagine someone in the desert, chasing a mirage. They run to it, it disappears, but they don't stop. They run to the next, and the next. That's what pleasure becomes when there's no meaning behind it. A chase without a finish line. And ironically, the pleasure that actually fills you, quiet, lasting, soul-deep pleasure, it's never loud. It doesn't demand. It doesn't distract. It doesn't numb. It grounds you. It grows you. It shows up in deep conversations, in finishing something hard, in waking up and realizing you no longer need what once owned you. But we don't chase that kind, because it takes time, effort, stillness. But it's the only kind that actually feeds us. Jung once wrote, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul." And maybe that's what pleasure has become, the most beautiful, comfortable absurdity of them all. Let's go back again. You fall as a child. You cry. Someone hands you a cookie. Don't cry, or says, "Look, cartoons." And in that moment, pleasure becomes your translator. It speaks when emotions are too hard. It masks the ache. And your brain learns pain equals bad. Feelings equals weakness. Solution, pleasure. So you grow up fluent in distraction. You stop saying, "I'm not okay." And instead, you eat, scroll, smile, perform. You dance around the ache. But every time you replace emotion with stimulation, you drift further from your true self. Jung warned that when we ignore the inner world, the outer world gets louder. And pleasure? It's the loudest thing out there. The scroll, the ping, the buzz, the binge. All screaming so you don't have to listen to the ache underneath, the longing to be seen, the pain of being overlooked, the hunger for real connection. Pleasure is sacred when it's intentional, but it becomes poison when it replaces presence. Have you ever felt guilt after something that should have made you feel good? Watching that extra episode you didn't need, texting someone who wasn't good for you, buying something pointless, eating when you weren't hungry. That guilt doesn't mean you did something terrible. It means your soul wasn't satisfied. You didn't feed your need. You just avoided the ache. And this is where most people get Jung wrong. Shadow work isn't about turning into something dark or edgy. It's not about aesthetics or mood swings. It's about noticing the exact moment you betray your own needs for comfort and choosing to stop. Choosing truth over escape. It's when you stop saying, "I need this to feel okay," and start asking, "Why do I feel like I'm not okay without it?" Let me share a story. There was a person who kept jumping from one intense relationship to another. At first glance, it looked like they were just a hopeless romantic. But the cycle was always the same. Fast spark, emotional obsession, collapse, repeat. When someone finally asked why they couldn't stop, they said, "I just love love." But that wasn't it. What they loved was distraction, because the moment they were alone, the silence felt unbearable. That silence was their wound screaming, "See me," and they couldn't. So they chased chaos, dressed as love. That story isn't rare. It's the quiet story of millions. People mistaking longing for love, scrolls for joy, noise for connection, stimulation for healing. And the most dangerous part? Not that these pleasures exist, but that we never stop to question why we need them. Pleasure is not healing. It's not peace. It's not purpose. It's not power. Pleasure is a tool, and any tool can become a weapon in the wrong hands. The more you use it to silence yourself, the more you forget what your inner voice even sounds like. So let's flip this. When was the last time you delayed gratification? You didn't reply to the text. You ignored the notification. You walked away from the snack. And later, you felt peace, pride, strength. That's because discipline isn't just about control. It's about trust. And self-trust is rare, but it's powerful. Because once you trust yourself again, pleasure doesn't control you anymore. You control it. That's when everything shifts. You choose the moment. You enjoy it with intention, fully, freely, without the crash afterward. That's when pleasure stops being anesthesia and becomes celebration. Now, imagine this. You walk into a room, no phone, no TV, just you. At first, the silence might feel like a threat, but then it feels like home. Not because you have everything, but because you are everything. That's what Jung meant when he talked about individuation. It's not about becoming perfect. It's about becoming whole, through integration, by bringing all parts of you into alignment, not just the shiny ones, the scared ones, the angry ones, the silent ones. It means you can sit in a room with yourself and not panic. You don't have to escape your thoughts. You don't fear your feelings. You don't run from your reflection. Because you've made peace with the person you are, not the one you perform to be. But to get there, you can't keep chasing one high after the next. You get there by lowering the volume on your distractions, listening to what's underneath them, sitting with it, breathing through it. That's what real work looks like. So, what does that look like in your everyday life? It means noticing the impulse to scroll and asking, what's missing in this moment? It means reaching for the chocolate and pausing. Am I hungry or am I hurting? It means hearing the silence and instead of fleeing, leaning in and listening. It's choosing the slower path, the kind of joy that takes effort, the kind that demands presence, the kind that doesn't offer an instant reward, but gives you peace that lingers. Because here's the truth most people never hear. Real pleasure is earned, not bought, not scrolled, not clicked, earned. The best laugh is the one you share with someone you trust. The best food is after a long day of meaningful work. The best intimacy comes from someone who sees you, not your filters. If any part of this is waking something up in you, good. That discomfort, that's what awakening feels like. It's not a huge moment, it's quiet, but it's powerful. You start realizing the craving you thought was boredom was actually your soul asking to be seen. Jung believed neurosis wasn't just the result of trauma, but from never confronting what trauma left behind, and unconscious pleasure is the easiest way to avoid that confrontation. But once you see it, you can't unsee it. Now comes the part that most people never want to face. You have to admit the one thing that hurts the most. You've betrayed yourself, not once, but a little. Every day. Every time you reach for something you didn't need. Every time you said, just 5 more minutes. Every time you silenced the voice inside you with comfort. Every time you told yourself, this feels good, when really, you just didn't want to feel anything at all. But don't confuse this with shame. This is clarity. This is power. You weren't weak. You were doing what you thought helped you survive. And now, you're ready to live. Because once you truly see the loop, once you recognize that most pleasure you chased was never joy, just sedation, you start noticing it everywhere. The party doesn't feel the same. The scroll doesn't satisfy. The quick hookup leaves you more hollow than before. Even the sugar loses its sweetness, because the real ache was never boredom. It was the absence of you, the absence of being fully alive, fully seen, fully present. Let me give you a picture that sticks. Imagine your life as a house, and inside that house, in the quietest room, sits your inner child, the part of you that still hurts, the part of you that never got closure. But instead of going inside to meet that child, you build an entertainment system outside the door. Lights, music, noise, snacks, stimulation, a carnival on the lawn. But the child stays alone, waiting. And that's what unchecked pleasure does. It throws a party outside so you never go home. Never listen, never heal. But healing, real healing, is walking through the silence, opening that door, sitting with the child, and saying, I'm here now. I won't leave again. That's what Jung meant by integrating the shadow. Not hiding from your pain, not numbing it, meeting it, holding it, loving it. He didn't want you addicted to stillness. He wanted you unafraid of it. Because silence isn't empty. Silence is full of everything you've been avoiding. And when you stop fearing that space, you meet the most powerful version of yourself. The version that doesn't need a screen to feel whole, that doesn't need attention to feel enough, that doesn't need noise to feel alive. This is where everything flips. You've been told your whole life that pleasure is the goal, that happiness means feeling good all the time, that freedom is doing whatever you want, whenever you want. But that's not freedom. That's dependence dressed in glitter. Real freedom is not needing it. Real freedom is not being pulled by every urge. Real freedom is smiling in the silence and feeling full, because you no longer need to run from yourself. True pleasure is not the chocolate. It's not the phone. It's not the likes. It's not the validation. True pleasure is waking up one day and realizing you're not addicted to stimulation anymore. You're not chasing the next hit. You're not constantly trying to avoid the quiet, because now the quiet feels like home. You'll move differently. People will notice. They'll say you've changed. You speak slower. You pause longer. You laugh less often. But when you do, it's deeper. It comes from a place of peace. They'll ask, why don't you drink like you used to? Why aren't you on socials anymore? Why don't you text back right away? And you'll smile, because they won't get it. They won't understand that you're not escaping anything anymore. You're simply here, present, whole. That's what scares most people, because when someone no longer needs pleasure to feel okay, they become unstoppable. They can't be controlled by ads, by cravings, by impulses. They don't chase. They don't beg. They don't overextend. They become grounded, focused, rooted. They become someone marketing can't manipulate, someone pain can't own, someone distractions can't detour. And that kind of person is rare. That kind of presence is power. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." And who you are is not a dopamine addict. You're not a bundle of cravings. You're not a walking void looking to be filled. You are a creator of meaning, and meaning is rarely convenient. It's not always fun. It's rarely easy. It demands your presence. It drains your ego. It makes you feel everything you've been running from. But it will feed you in ways pleasure never could. So, next time the craving hits, pause. Not to fight it, not to shame it, but to ask one question that can change your life. What do I truly need right now? That moment of asking, that space of reflection, that is the interruption that rewires your path. It reminds you, you are not your hunger. You are the one who decides how you feed it. So, I'll leave you with this. You'll never look at pleasure the same way again. Not because pleasure is the enemy, but because now you see it. You see it clearly. You'll still laugh, still love, still enjoy the sweetness of life. But you'll do it from a place of awareness, not addiction. And that awareness will protect you. It'll guard your peace. It'll sharpen your habits, clean your relationships, strengthen your discipline. It will make your joy sacred and your silence golden. Because the kind of pleasure you don't have to chase is the only kind worth having. If this spoke to you, hit the like button, subscribe for more truth like this, and comment below with the words, "I choose presence over pleasure." That way, I know you stayed with me until the end. Share this video with someone who's ready to hear what most people are too distracted to face. Support this channel to help us reach every soul who's silently craving this awakening. You showing up here today, that's no accident. That's the beginning of your return to yourself.